I don't know that it's even possible to have a thriving romantic relationship if you don't have friends.
I think when people kind of disregard or don't value friendship, then they're not valuing themselves as a role in other people's lives. And some of the most impactful things that some people have ever said to me have been from my friends, have been from the people that I trust, have been from the people that I value.
When our system finally gets one person, we hyper obsess into them as if they are the only drug dealer on the planet, and we will do anything to get that fixed. And it makes us crazier, which if they are already solid and good, it makes us look bad and it makes us destroy the relationship. Having a friendship actually guards your brain from that problem. So yes, we don't hyperfixate and make them our one and only person, but even biochemically and neurologically, it makes us stronger. I'd love to get your perspective on that. Are we relational beings more than we are individuals? If you're lonely in your life, is a partner really what you need? I don't think they are. I think that you need friendships in your life. But when I tell people that, they usually get a little bit scared and a little bit angry. They say, Adam, you have no idea how hard it is to build a friendship. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do, and I don't know who I would be friends with. That's exactly why I brought on Krista Williams today. Her Instagram page is full of information about not only how to build an incredible friendship, but why friendship is often more important than a romantic connection. Krista, loneliness today is not just an epidemic. That's not even a word that we should be using for loneliness. Loneliness is devastating. It is life-threatening. I was just speaking to my group not too long ago, my group coaching practice, and they were astounded to learn that among millennials, it's at least 2/3 of millennials report feeling lonely every single day. And loneliness is not just solitude, right? You can be alone in a moment, but these people are alone in the world. They feel alone in the world. Some of them have tons of friends, or they think they do. Some of them have a partner, and they are still lonely every single day. One thing that I love about your work and a lot of the conversations you have is you don't pull any punches when it comes to how much we need our friends and what our friendships are supposed to be doing for us. I would love to hear from you, your perspective. What is the role of friendship in a human life?
I think friendship is one of the most underrated conversations in human connection. When I think about all of the conversation I had with my friends, with family, with community, with culture, with society, it's usually about romantic relationships. Most of the songs, most of the literature, most of my conversations, even with friends, was about romantic relationships. And it always felt like that primary attachment was the goal, that was the focus, that was the thing. But what I've realized over time in life is obviously your primary attachment, the person that you're with as a partner, will change at points in time in your life, and mine definitely did. But my friendships and the relationships that I have with women are some of the most important aspects of my life. I've actually learned how to be in a healthy, secure attachment from my best friend. So my best friend, Lindsay, is my podcast co-host and business partner, and she's probably the first person I've ever trusted in my life. I have been working on this business with her for 10 years, and it probably took her 7 years to earn my secure attachment and trust, but she provided the template of what secure attachment is that I now use with my romantic relationships. But I think when we think about, in culture and society, this like primary focus of finding the one, finding the person that's going to complete us, finding the other half of our soul, finding the person that we've been waiting for all of our life, we really disregard the consistent day-to-day communication, connection, like conversations we have with our friends. And I've really shifted my focus, especially after my divorce a few years ago, to my friendships as like creating that feeling for me of community, of meaning, and of purpose in my life. And friendship has been one of the most important aspects of my life, and one that I now take very seriously. And I take the relationships, especially ones that are very intimately close to me, as seriously as I take my romantic relationships, because they will be with me as long as my romantic relationships potentially will, and they will have as much impact on me as my romantic relationships potentially will. And all of that pressure that I removed from my romantic relationship to be my everything, my sounding board, my nervous system regulator, my, confidant, like all of this has not only helped me put less pressure on my romantic relationships, but also has increased the amount of intimacy I have with so many other people, which really helps me to feel less alone. It's helped me to feel more secure. It's helped me to just evolve into a person that has such a rich life, not because I just have one amazing partner, but I have so many.
That is fantastic. And I absolutely love that because our friendships are, and this is proven, so much more about opportunity than romantic partners are. It brings more opportunity in your life. It brings more opportunity for growth, for financial growth, even for business, for skill training. Your partner is super important. I've been married for 17 years. We're expecting baby number 6. So I'm not down on partners. My wife is an incredible source of strength and everything in my life. And at the same time, if I did not have my friends, I do not know how I could possibly have become the man that I am today. It's not 100% my wife by any means. My friends shape me every single day. And it is so frustrating to me. And I think
Mhm.
you'll share this feeling. It is so frustrating to me when somebody comes to me and says, "Adam, I want to fix my attachment, but how can I possibly do that because I don't have a partner right now?" And that tells me so much about what they misunderstand about friendship. That's why their relationships haven't worked because they don't have friendships. I don't know that it's even possible to have a thriving romantic relationship if you don't have friends. What do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%. I think I've been in that. I remember when I was younger, that was kind of my goal. I was like, okay, find the person and then I'll kind of forget about my friends. Like they weren't as important to me as, I thought that they were. So I was kind of like abandoning them for this primary attachment. And I had that first love relationship where I left everyone behind. I became obsessed with this person and it became such a load on them to keep me happy, sustained, validated, all of these things because all of my attachment wounds were based on them, and it fell apart because it was just too much pressure for one person to hold. There was just too much there. And I think when people kind of disregard or don't value friendship, then they're not valuing themselves as a role in other people's lives. And some of the most impactful things that some people have ever said to me have been from my friends, have been from the people that I trust, have been from the people that I value. And I think we as women can oftentimes focus so much on men, but it's funny because, I've been in deep long-term relationships with men over my life. And I've also noticed that a lot of men will sort of just kind of let go of their deep friendships or their deep relationships and really focus on the woman for a lot. So I think it happens on both sides, but I don't think that people will have a fulfilling relationship or a fulfilling life without friends. And so if we're wanting to have the full spectrum life of deep, meaningful relationships, of that deep, loving relationship that can last for a long time, it's going to cause us to take some of that energy and some of that attention and focus on friendship and focus on cultivating real, meaningful friendship, which means conflict repair, which means putting yourself out there, which means having uncomfortable conversations, which means telling people the truth, which means making yourself available when maybe you're tired, which means doing all of the things that sometimes in romantic relationship you don't always want to do. Like you don't always want to have conflict repair, you don't always want to be available, you don't always want to prioritize someone else over yourself, but you kind of have to take some of that energy and that intention and put it in your friendship so that you have those meaningful, robust relationships as well.
I love this. And everything that you're talking about is true on the front end that we
Mhm.
see, that we visualize. We can infer a lot of this because we see the truth of it, we feel it, we experience it. On the back end, are you familiar with the works of Dr. Sue Carter around oxytocin, vasopressin? Very few people are. I always ask just
Is
in
this
case.
is this where women bond with oxytocin, men with vasopressin?
A little bit. We actually bond with both. Interestingly, women prioritize oxytocin, men prioritize vasopressin. But an even step, if a step beyond that, you might enjoy. And I just read a research paper from a young PhD candidate who just put
Mm.
out work confirming this. They reconfirm this every few years just to make sure it's true. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, if we experience it with one human being, just one human being, our brain becomes obsessively fixated on that person and our anxiety gets worse and our nervous system spikes into dysregulation on purpose because our system is so dependent on oxytocin for fertility on male and female side, for sleep quality, for human growth hormone, for wound healing, for cancer resilience, for health, everything. You're big into health, I know that.
Mhm.
um, Oxytocin determines so much of our well-being that when our system finally gets one person, we hyper obsess into them as if they are the only drug dealer on the planet and we will do anything to get that fix. And it makes us crazier, which if they are already solid and good, it makes us look bad and it makes us destroy the relationship. Having a friendship actually guards your brain from that problem. So yes, we don't hyperfixate and make them our one and only person, but even biochemically and neurologically, it makes us stronger.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And I love that we're bringing this into the conversation. And when you were speaking, I was almost reflecting on my intimacy and the depth I've created in the female relationships I've been in. And I was kind of looking back at my trajectory, and I was mentioning before that Lindsay, it took even her a while to get my true trust. And a lot of the work of me actually feeling like I could be intimate with women, and that meant sharing secrets. And that means being touchy and lovey and playful and letting my guard down and actually allowing myself to get close enough where we could bond with oxytocin, where we could feel like we're regulating our nervous systems. Like there's that decompression, there's that softness, there's that love. That for me took a lot of healing of my mother wound and the sister wound that I had. I really struggled with my mom in my life, and I've talked a lot about it on the podcast, but that primary relationship, that relationship that really sets the stage for so many other relationships in your life, and especially for me in my relationships with women, I had to do a lot of healing work on my own to allow myself to soften into, to receive, and to be in spaces and be in places with the women in my life where I could even allow oxytocin to allow us to bond. So I think when people think about, and my work is with primary women, but this could be with men too. I think when we think about, okay, so I want to have deep, meaningful friendships. I want to have relationships where I'm able to sort of transfer some of my oxytocin to, I'm able to sort of, spread my oxytocin seed to other people and have, deep connection and bonding and playfulness and intimacy in that way. My way was really working on healing myself. My way was really working on the parts of me that were deeply afraid of being abandoned or betrayed or hurt, having them feel safe with me, having secure attachment with me, so that it was safe to let my guard down. It was safe to let people in. It was safe for me to even have the idea or the softness to allow oxytocin to bond us. And so I think when we think about healing, it very much involves other people. It very much involves the relationships that we're in. But for me, in a lot of ways, and I think this could be true for others as well, it was me really kind of creating the relationship of safety within myself to even allow myself to play with the idea of having deep intimacy with other women in my life.
I get asked all the time, what is my attachment style? What is my attachment style? What is my attachment style? So I have finally launched the attachment assessment. This is not a short quiz that just spits out an answer after 3 seconds. This is a thorough, in-depth, science-backed assessment. Check it out on my website, adamlanesmith.com, and learn your attachment style, the severity of what you're dealing with, and some next steps you can take right now to build very secure attachment. That's so true. Most humans have no intimacy today with anyone. They don't even really have intimacy with their romantic partner. They have a sort of pseudo intimacy where you're serving them and you're naked in front of them and you're doing intimate acts and behaviors with them. And then you are constantly hoping for their acceptance and being judged by them. But that's not real intimacy. Real intimacy is being able, like you described, to be able to calm down in their presence, open up your parasympathetic rest digest state, become playful. Your oxytocin receptors are closed from cortisol. They begin to open up. That is intimacy. Mm-hmm. And most people don't even have that with their partner. They definitely don't have it with their friends. Yeah, so it sounds like you have learned how to do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm perfect, but I definitely have learned how to do that. I think conflict repair for me too was like a huge aspect of intimacy, because in my house, in a lot of people's homes, we don't see healthy conflict repair. You just sort of see conflict and rupture and then people getting further and further away. And for my life and my parents, I saw their relationship. They divorced eventually, but no real intimacy. I saw them not feel comfortable with one another, not feel like they could be themselves. It always felt like there was something left unsaid. There was something not being communicated. And I saw that with myself happen in my marriage or in other relationships where you are with this person and you're like, you're the most important person to me. This is the deepest relationship of my life. This is the most meaningful relationship of my life. I commit my life to you. And then you see just over time, less access to the internal landscape of the partner, less access to the nervous system of the other partner, to sort of, the softness of the other partner, the play of the other partner. And I just committed, at the end of my marriage when it was sort of ending, that like I would do whatever I could to just make sure in my next relationship, I'm in another relationship now, that was there, that true intimacy was there, that true honesty was there, because that's what made me feel the most lonely, was feeling like I could not be and be myself, express how I felt, say what I was scared of, be silly, be messy, be all these things that everybody wants to be in their relationship. To have that true intimacy is having that imperfection, all of those things. And when I saw that sort of going away and it wasn't really able to repair, I was just like, I cannot not have that in my next relationship, because that made me feel the most alone, when I was just denying myself continuously the ability to actually be who I was in front of someone else.
Repair is one of those skills. It's been lost over the last 120
Mhm.
years as families have been more and more broken. I fully agree. I'd love to talk about repair in a moment, but I'm really curious about something. You mentioned earlier, you said that when you first got into your previous romantic relationship, your idea was almost let the friendships go, fixate on the partner and focus in there. And that was your younger practice.
Mhm.
And now you're in a new relationship, wiser and moving forward with deeper friendships. That's the target for all of us, right? Is you get wiser as we move on. What are you doing different in your friendships now?
Mhm.
How are your friendships different as you ease into a new romance?
Yeah. So the way that I'm approaching this relationship, so the first relationship, that was like my high school relationship. So that was, give myself a little grace, but yeah, for sure. And this relationship right now, the way I'm approaching it differently, one of the first things is I'm being incredibly honest with my friends. So I don't share everything about my romantic relationship with all of my friends. That's one. But I am choosing the 2 to 3 friends that have deep access to me, that always get access to my internal landscape, that get the truth from me, that I trust to be with me in the process and sort of tracking the process to ensure I'm in a healthy state, that we're moving in the right direction, that I'm being honest and true to me, that I'm staying in my integrity. I'm sharing, what's happening. So they are able to help me stay honest, to stay in my integrity, to stay aligned to what I want, because I trust them. These are women that are incredibly processed, incredibly powerful, have known me for a long time. So I'm being really honest with them about how things are going because I trust them. And that also creates a dynamic where they know that they're part of my intimate life, in my intimate thoughts, in my intimate experience. And so that not only benefits me to have someone, but it also benefits our relationship because we have that. Additionally, I'm not shifting my life and time and energy completely to this new romantic relationship. I am spending equal time with my friends, and my romantic relationship is now becoming a part of my friendships and a part of that dynamic when appropriate and where it fits. I think we sort of shift immediately to all of our time and energy and attention to the primary partner, the romantic partner. And now it's, for me, 50-50, at least, because my friendships deserve that. And I deserve that in that connection. And I would say third, I'm really reestablishing right now in communication how I want to be in my relationship now that I have my time and energy sort of shifted to romantic. So I'm not saying that, I'm perfect, but I had 100% of my time for my friends before. Now I have 50% of my time for my friends before, which is fine. I do want to have a family and a deep, meaningful romantic relationship. But when I do shift that time and energy, I'm in conversation with my friends about it. I'm like, hey, I love you so much. I'm always here. I might not have enough time for everything, for processing on the phone for 3 hours a day like I used to, but I'm always here when you need me. And I want you to just be clear with me if you feel like there's been a shift in our relationship in the time and energy spend. And I'm happy to support you in feeling better or support us in feeling better. I had a friend, a few weeks ago message me, and she's like, hey, I just really feel and miss you. I've noticed that I'm not getting as much of you. I noticed that you're not as available. I've noticed all of these things. And she has every right to say that. That's completely okay by me. That's completely acceptable by me. And she's right. And so in that, I honor and acknowledge. I'm appreciative of the honesty, and I'll do what I can. I'm not going to be perfect, but I promise to do what I can. So in return, my friends are also able to be really honest with me if they need more of me, if they need different from me, if they need something, adjusted. I'm happy to do that if it feels in integrity for me. So most of the time it's honesty and communication, and it's being really upfront about how my energy and time is shifting so that we're all on the same page.
What does your partner feel about all that? Is he jealous? Is he angry? Does he sit at home crying, waiting for you to get home when you're with your friends? What is his reaction to you investing so much in your friendships?
I sometimes there's an old wounded part of me that wishes he had a little bit of jealousy in his body. This man has no jealousy in his body. And I think high school Krista just wishes he had a smidgen just to spice it up every once in a while. He actually is really teaching me. He has very deep, meaningful relationships and friendships. And he also has a lot of female friendships that, at first, the old version of me, I'm from Ohio. It's very conservative. It's very like, there's a certain way of being and living and existing in relationships. And I had kind of like side-eyed that, but it's actually really educated me and showed me how meaningful it is for him to have female perspective in his life, to have female input, to have a woman's perspective on things in his life. So he's educating me in a lot of different ways on relationships and friendships. He is the most supportive of my friendships and my relationships. I personally have never dated someone that's jealous. I've never dated someone that's controlling in that way. I do think that potentially in the past, at the end of my marriage, I maybe prioritized my friendships a little bit more than my romantic relationship because I was suffering so much. So that I probably needed to watch. But right now I feel really balanced and supported. And it feels really, really good to have someone that values community as much as I do, because that is something I want to have for the rest of my life.
That's something that I read an article not too long ago where a lot of women were complaining about something called man keeping. He has no friends and I take care of his emotional needs. And I think that cuts both ways because there's a lot of men who the wife has no, or the girlfriend has no friends and he takes care constantly of her emotional needs. And I think that we are responsible for having
Mhm.
friendships and appropriate oxytocin balances outside. One thing I work with a lot of my clients on is understanding the balance of co-regulation and self-regulation.
Yeah.
Turns out we need to self-regulate about 70%.
Mhm.
We need to co-regulate with other humans about 30%, but that's not your partner. Your partner might be half of that, 15%.
Mhm.
You're splitting 50-50 by the science. You're doing everything right by the science. So it's great on the back end. 15% needs to come from family and friends.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And if you're not getting that, you're not doing much at all. If you're not co-regulating with other humans, though, unfortunately, your 70% self-regulation drops to about 30% capacity. So you're self-regulating 30%, missing 40% of your self-regulation and co-regulating zero. This is most people at 30% capacity, or with my clients, we do 7 out of 10 stress level. They're
Mhm.
just amped up every day, high cortisol levels. We're seeing the rise of fertility issues in women, especially, but also in men, all the reproductive cancers, all the cancer in general, the heart attack, all 10 leading causes of death, even insulin resistance and
Yeah.
diabetes, everything tagged in with that lack of co-regulation. And I'd love to get your take on this. I believe we are not individualistic people. We're not as a
Mhm.
species. We are relational beings.
Mhm.
I don't think that we can reduce humanity down to one solo human being, because if you
Mhm.
put a solo human being in a room alone for a year, they don't do well, right?
Mhm.
We're not meant to be isolated beings. We're actually meant to be in relationship with others. I think the smallest unit of humanity is maybe a tribe, all right? Not even the nuclear family,
Mhm.
but we're hunter-gatherer creatures. We're supposed to be in hunter-gatherer
Mhm.
pockets of anywhere from 5 to 15 people, and that's really where we thrive. Apart from that, we begin to wither and die. Same
Mhm.
way if you took a part off of a human being, it begins to wither and die. It can't live on its own. I'd love
Mhm.
to get your perspective on that. Are we relational beings more than we are
Mhm.
individuals?
Yeah, when I completely agree with you. I think I became liberated in that knowing and awareness from honestly hearing Jordan Peterson speak years ago. I was on my healing path and my healing journey, and I was kind of doing everything on my own. I'm like, okay, I have to heal and I have to do all this stuff and do all this work. And I don't remember what it was, but he probably said it just in passing on a podcast. He's like, we're communal creatures, we're relational creatures, and we need each other, as much as we need ourselves to survive. And sometimes that kind of happens in life. Someone just says one phrase or one word, and it just hits you in a way that you really needed to hear. And that really can give you permission, and that can give you the awareness to sort of shift how you operate. And I especially know that for women. I just work with mostly women. So a lot of my language and a lot of my wording is around women. But to give ourselves the awareness and to say, like, it is a part of my survival to be in community. And maybe if we shifted to that when we think about friendships, we'd be better off to say, this is a survival strategy, to be in community, to be in tribe, to be around people that love us, to be around people that care. And it is as essential as having food and water. It is as essential as all the other things that we do need to survive. We might be better off with that sort of frame. And when I liberated myself from the belief that it all had to be on me and that I had to do it myself and that I had to heal everything and I had to do all this stuff, which maybe was a trauma response in itself, I just became such a softer person and such a happier person and such um, a person with so much less pressure. But what I think what's happening now, and I'm curious if you see this as true, is we have the thought that being on social media is community or connection, and that being online is community and connection, and that we are connected, but we are not connected at the same time. And a lot of us are connected to false selves, or, like holograms of people, or these ideas of people. Or a lot of us are getting the feeling that we're sort of in a relationship parasocially with someone that we're not. So it's almost like this sort of alternate reality is sort of making us fall into the illusion of connection in this really shallow way when we're not. And I think that's where a lot of people are sort of falling victim to an illusion of connection and closeness that they're not actually experiencing in their life.
You're so right. No, you are so right. We are hunter-gatherers at heart. Our brains have not changed in the last 12,000 years. We only discovered agriculture and how to grow corn 12,000 years ago. We haven't evolved even for that. Our systems don't understand how to handle surplus from crops yet. We don't understand how to manage that. So when you go back to the hunter-gatherer tribe, daily you were striving and surviving and fighting and winning together. People saw you at your worst and accepted you because they also saw you at your best. There were no secrets in a hunter-gatherer tribe. There are no secrets. They see every wart and everything on you, and they know every skill set you have and what you lack. And then you work together diligently to fill those gaps, because you can't just shut each other out and say, okay, fine, I don't like you anymore, go over there and die, because you'll die too. So you have to work together diligently to survive. And the further we get from that model, the more, I hate to say it, but the more privacy we create, especially away from our loved ones, the more invisibility we have around our imperfections, the more we lie to ourselves and say, I'm hiding it, and it doesn't matter. The more we can lie to our wife and hide a pornography addiction, the more we can hide from our husband that we are lonely and unfulfilled for 20 years before we blow up and file for divorce. The more that our kids think they can hide from us and then think it's normal to hide from parents, as we glorify now, right? Glorify hiding secrets from your parents. The more that we shrug and say, I guess I just won't have friends, the more that our friends are now nothing but a digital screen that our brain gets dopamine from instead of oxytocin, serotonin, vasopressin, and GABA, and all of that to soothe our nervous system. You had an incredible Instagram reel that was put out, and everybody go check out her Instagram. A great Instagram reel, all right, about the benefits of mirroring and seeing other people, feeling them when they are using soft voices and soft eyes at moments when we are scared and hurt. It begins to signal to our system that we are safe. It releases oxytocin, which in turn releases GABA, which is the biochemical signal for I am loved and I am safe. And that reduces our cortisol and brings us down. It's not something that we can smoke or inject or snort away. We have to have human interaction that soothes us, and our system knows the difference between an oxytocin spray up the nose and getting oxytocin enriched from a group of people that love us and see us. Those are very different things.
Yeah, I had the personal experience of the mirror effect in doing retreats. So with the podcast, we have a community of women all over the world, and I felt called to do deeper work with women at retreats. And I didn't really know exactly what I was getting into when we first started years ago. But then recently, as I've just deepened the work and I've deepened, the containers with the women, the transformation and the healing that I see never ceases to amaze me. And so much of it is because they are mirroring to one another. They are providing a safe landing space for one another in the process of their healing, in the process of when they are emoting or feeling or expressing. And they're also able to see themselves clearly. So as a coach, I work with women one-on-one, and I think a lot of my work is actually helping women to see themselves clearly, where people will see themselves as unworthy, unlovable, not successful, fat, a loser, all of these things. And when you have someone sitting right in front of you holding the truth, a mirror to what you actually are, which is perfect, whole, loved, all of these things, whether that's on retreat or one-on-one work, that is how you transform and shift. And I've seen the most beautiful transformations either at retreats with women doing that to one another or in my one-on-one work. Really just like, it never ceases to amaze me, the human spirit, and how people just with like one truth of like, no, you actually are worthy. Like, I don't see you that way. I see you as incredibly capable and all of these things. How quickly people will shift from the feeling of their whole lives of feeling this way. And I do believe that whether it's at retreat, whether it's at women's circles, men's circles, church groups, whatever it is, having a space that is really safe, that feels really connected, that feels really authentic and true, where you can practice and embody what it feels like to be in intimate relationships. You can practice and embody feeling soft, relaxing your nervous system, co-regulating with people. That is something you can take with you for the rest of your life. And it's been profound, to really see that. And I think it's me providing the invitation, and then it's people really doing what humans do naturally in that space of healing. And it's amazing.
I want to echo that because one big challenge that I see a lot with my clients with attachment issues, obviously, is they grew up in a family system where they weren't allowed to ask questions. They were told questions are bad. They were punished for questions, or their parents just did the and
I know.
groan, sigh, shut them down. They learned that questions are not welcome. You will be punished. Either you're not good enough for me to answer, or I don't have time for you, so go away. Whether they become anxious, avoidant, whatever it may be, they learn that questions are never welcome. And whether I'm on retreats with my people that come in and I make them ask questions. You must ask me questions. And they ask in the group and I answer and I say, that was a great question. And everyone else in the group goes, yes, it was. And they are rewarded for asking a question in that moment. The same way that when I have a client come in, I'm relieved, more relieved when a client comes in who has friends than if they have a partner. A partner is really hit or miss. And that can work, but it's just one person. If they have two good friends or even one, that I am overjoyed. I say, you have so much work that has been saved for you by having this person. Here are the questions I need you to go and ask them. And they say, oh, that'll bother them. I say the first question then that you have to ask them is, do I have permission to ask you questions? You need to set up that framework so that you can build that connection with that person and understand that questions are welcome. And as they question more, and the person questions them in return, it becomes a relationship of questioning and conversation. You shared something earlier that I want to ask you is your friend said, hey, I'm not feeling as much time from you. I'm not observing. Was she making statements at you, or was she asking questions of you? And did you return with questions?
It's a great question. Just to frame it, I live in Los Angeles. I've been in the personal growth and self-development space for 10 plus years. So the relationships that I have are with women that are so regulated, so dialed. They have the language, the lingo, they're doing their own work. And where I grew up in Ohio and, how I grew up, this wasn't really normal. I still have friendships and relationships with people from home, and having this mature of a dialogue is not always the norm. And so when she brought that to me, it was very much her taking responsibility. So in the ideal situation, you're always using I statements over you statements. Any you statement, you are ignoring me, you are abandoning me, you are not making time for me, could essentially be an I statement. I feel abandoned. I feel ignored. I feel like you're not making time for me. So it's always framed. It's not always, but usually with friends, it's framed in the I. I'm feeling like I'm not getting enough of your time, and I'm feeling like I'm not a priority, and it's making me really sad. And I'm wondering if there's anything that I've done wrong. And whenever anyone comes to me with like a true honest request of vulnerability and honesty, like it is my deepest joy to be able to hold space. And I find to take pride in helping people heal the aspects of them that are so deeply afraid of being vulnerable and speaking their needs and making a request. Because for me, that took so long to feel like I could actually have a request or speak my needs or share vulnerably to my relationships and friendships. And so it was said in an I statement. It's said very much in a regulated state. And it usually is just like an opening of conversation. And because we're both very self-led, internal family systems is kind of the world that I live in, but we're very self-led. It's easy to find a solution. But there have been times where I've had friends where it wasn't that way, where it's, you always do this, you do that. I notice you do this, and you are this, and us kind of being in a state where we're just fighting in a way that wasn't productive or helpful or supportive, or really it was our lower selves or our younger children that were wanting something, but not knowing how to communicate or not knowing how to ask for our needs. So that conversation, for me at least, was an opportunity for softening and deepening and more intimacy. And I think when I was probably less healed or less aware, I might have taken it personally. I might have been like, I don't have enough time. I'm busy. She's not happy for me. I'm in love. All of these things. Like, it's very easy to take things as if you've done something wrong. But because I know at my core and every cell in my body that I'm good and I'm trying my best, nothing can really knock me out of that belief to thinking that I'm not. And so any feedback is always welcome to me. It's going to run through my filter of like, does that feel true? Where does that feel like it's coming from? What do I want to do with that? But I'll always meet it with love and respect, because I know that it will only lead us to a deeper, more intimate relationship when she shares it.
I love this so much. And one thing that I want to dive into now, because I promised we would come back to it, is repair. So, for everybody in our audience out there who doesn't know what repair means, when you have a conflict, it's a question. Am I able to work on this with you, or do our goals oppose each other? And if they oppose each other, do we have to fight about it, or can we find a balance where we can both be taken care of? That's the question of conflict. Now, if you can ask those questions, you can then go into what's called resolution, where you resolve the conflict, you resolve the issue, blah, blah, blah. You solve the logistic questions, right? Or you battle it out and eventually the problem gets solved one way or another. It's an ugly resolution, but it's still a resolution. None of that is repair. None of that is repair at all. The repair cycle comes at the end when you reaffirm the relationship itself, when you say, you are more important to me than this conflict has been. I care about you. Are we okay now? Are you good with me? And is there anything else you need? And maybe this might be what I need. Can you give this to me so I'm also really feeling fully recovered? It's a full repair dialogue that has to come at the end. And it looks like many different things for a lot of people. Krista, tell me about the repair process you went through with your friend. You don't even have to tell me the resolution, what you guys did, but the repair cycle after. What was that like for the two of you? I know that a lot of the people watching this show right now have had attachment issues for their entire life. That's why I want to invite every single one of you to check out my attachment repair program. It just might be the jump that you need to go from insecurely attached and lonely and frustrated to fully secure, connected, and bonded in a great relationship like nothing you've ever felt before. Check out my website, adamlanesmith.com, for the attachment repair program.
Yeah. So for this friend, it was if someone's reaching out to me vulnerably and honestly like that, I'm going to reply right away, like ASAP. So this type of thing, I'm not going to sit on. I'm not going to put off. I'm going to honor and respect that she might be dysregulated, that she might have a need, that there's a little girl that's looking for connection, that's looking for validation, that's has a request of me. So I'm going to honor that first of all and respond as quickly as I can, even if it's like, hey, baby, I heard this and I love you. Let me get back to you at the end of the day when I have time. This is something that we wish all of our parents did. If they're like, you're upset and you're like, hey, baby, I see you. I love you. Give me 1 second when I'm going to answer that question in full when you're talking about the question thing. Hey, I'm at capacity right now, but I really want to give you time for that. Just give me a minute would be the dream, for all of us. So I'm going to respond, right away to that. And then usually it's a phone call or seeing each other in person. I really love to do walks with my friends, especially if we're having repair conversations, because when you are walking in the same direction with someone, your brain is automatically priming you to believe that you're moving towards the same destination and the same goal. So you already feel like you're kind of on the same page if you're on a walk together. And it also helps relax the eyes. There's something primal that happens if you're sitting in front of each other, looking at each other dead in the eye, if you guys are having a hard conversation. And so going on a walk can be fun. We're outside, we're moving towards the same direction. We're not looking at each other. And I just give a lot of space for someone to share. And I think what has helped me immensely, 100% the most, is knowing that when people come to me and they are upset or mad or disappointed or all these things, it is a part of them that is like needing something from me. And so when I can see myself moving into my inner mother or, the higher self aspect of me or the most loving aspect of me to meet them, we usually can have a beautiful conversation. And I'm not saying that I've always done that. There definitely had my younger self be like, oh my God, come out before, but it is so meaningful to me to be in receipt of someone's vulnerability and authenticity. So I let them know right away. I love to go on walks. We'll be on the phone. And then it's really in that just hearing her out. Like, I completely hear you. I'm validating you. That makes sense. This is where I'm at. I also can share, this is where I'm at. This is what's going on in my life. When we usually get in issues like we were having, she has an assumption of me that I have more time than I do and that I'm not prioritizing her. I have an assumption of her that she's all good and she doesn't need me. So we come to the truth together. What is the actual truth? The actual truth is that you would like more of me. And the actual truth for me is that I don't have as much time. How can we come to a place where we both feel like we're met in the relationship and we both feel like we're a priority to one another? So I would say that is like the ideal repair situation that we would have together.
I love this. This is fantastic. It's important to me to track this for the people in the audience because most of them have never experienced a friendship quite like that before.
Yeah.
Highlighting that like you said, you've done tremendous amounts of work and you have cleaned your friend circles to a place where they are highly adaptive to you. You are highly adaptive to them without anyone collapsing into the relationship either, though. It's not codependent, it's not obsessive. That's a key element. And it's taken a lot of work for you to be able to do that.
Mhm,
And I think part of that is something I saw on your Instagram channel called the friendship audit,
mhm,
which if somebody sees that initially, they might be like, wow, that is sociopathic and
mhm,
cruel. How could you do that? You're
mhm,
tracking your friends, you're measuring them. You mean they have to perform? Can you tell me more about the friendship audit? Because I
mhm.
personally found it quite fascinating.
You're grading your friends. You're doing that. Yeah, people have had a feel about it. They're like, "Oh my God, that seems so savage and cruel to audit your friends." But what's interesting is so much of what I do is bringing the unconscious conscious. People are unconsciously auditing their friends quite often. You could have a dinner with a friend and it was kind of boring, didn't really feel connected, didn't really have that much fun. You might leave and be like, I don't know if I want to spend as much time with that friend as I had before. Or maybe you go to someone, you're really excited about something, and you're like, oh my God, this amazing thing happened. And they're like, that sounds cool. Like, what's that? And they don't respond in a way that makes you feel seen or heard. You are auditing them in your mind and thinking, I don't know if I want to share something with them. I don't know if I want to open, my time to them. So the origin of the friendship audit for me was a few years ago where I was looking at the time spent in my life. And I actually was in dynamics with some female friendships where I was anxiously attached with them and I was pedestaling them. And I was just thinking about obsessively a few friends in my life that I didn't feel like were reciprocal. I didn't feel like they cared about me as much, were prioritizing me as much, were spending as much time with me as I wanted to spend with them. And I just was like obsessed with them. And then I was looking at this relationship I had as the example with Lindsay, my best friend, who was secure. And I wasn't really calling her that much or thinking about her that much or, spending that much time outside of the business with her. And I had this sobering moment where I realized that the person that I love and care for the most, my priority, which is Lindsay, was getting the least time. And that the friends that I didn't feel super safe with or good about were getting more of my time and energy because I was looking for that connection or attachment or validation. And so I started to really think about the relationships in my life. And for a lot of us, I think we could say as a value, family is my value. But for a lot of people, they're at work all the time. They're on their phones all the time. They're texting. They're watching TV every night. They're, watching TV for 4 hours a day. Your family is your value, but your energy and the time you're spending is not aligned to what you say your number one value is. So I wanted to be in alignment to my values, and relationships are, having healthy relationships is a value for me. Having community is a value for me. So I had to look at my life. I had to look at how I was spending my time and my energy. And for me, that meant, even in my mind or written down in my notes app, and none of my friends receive a grade. No one gets an email from me that says they were demoted or says they moved on a list or says anything bad happened to them. But I wrote down on a piece of paper or a Google sheet, and I just said, these are the people in my life that are the most important to me. These are the people that get deep, intimate access to me, that could call me in the middle of the night, that I want around forever, that get access to my secrets, that these are my core people that know me as intimately as my romantic relationships. And that is, 3 women in my life. So I'm like, they get deep intimate access. If they call me, I answer. If they need me, I'm there. If I need them, they're there. It's like we have this dynamic. The second ring is people that I deeply love, people that I see once a month, people that we share good times with, people that we share, experiences with that I really, care about. And then the third are acquaintances. And the fourth would be, people that I'm unsure about and people that I don't really feel safe with or comfortable with. And I don't really know if they secretly hate me or I hate them. People that I'm kind of unsure about that I don't know if they're going to fit in my life. Maybe people that should move out of my life, relationships I've grown beyond, relationships that don't support me anymore. And it doesn't mean they're kicked off the list, but it means that I'm probably going to be wanting to spend the least amount of time with them. And I might even think about removing them from my life because I already have a full list or I have a lot of time, energy, and attention that needs to go to the other relationship. So what it is basically is you getting really honest about how you're spending your time. You getting really honest about wanting deep intimacy in your life. You getting really honest with your friends and the people in your life and bringing clarity to conversations about what you expect from your friendships and what they can expect from you. And it has really provided me with this even more deep relationships and even more peace in my mind, because I know what people expect from me and I know what I can expect from them. And just as a last thing about it, the friendships that are in my core circle, those meaningful relationships, I had a conversation with them and I just told them, like, you are deeply meaningful to me. I want our relationship to be one where there's no psychic debris of us having issues. If something bothers you, you can express it to me. If something bothers me, I can express it to you. You can expect me to be there. I can expect you to be there. And this is a relationship I want for a very long time. So I want you to know where you stand. I didn't have any other conversations with anyone else about where they stood in my life, but it really allowed me to just get really, really clear and honest.
I love this. I really love this. And I try to teach over on my side what I call the 4 levels of trust. And they require specific conversations. We actually can't build trust with people if we don't talk to them about it or ask them what they want from us, right? We have to understand what their goals are, what they desire in life. I think that the best friendships should be talking about, hey, what are you building and how can I help you? It sounds like you have those conversations with your friends.
Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes when I talk, I seem like I'm militant and like I'm psycho and insane because I know for you and I, we're like, okay, but I'm a communicator. I over communicate. My life became better when I started to communicate. Everything became easier when I started to communicate. I spent so many years of my life having conversations with myself in my head as someone that was incredibly codependent, just running scenarios. Maybe they're thinking this, maybe they're this, did all this stuff. And when I started to actually use my voice and express my needs, ask questions, get curious, communicate what is going on in my head, what are my expectations, what are my desires, all of the people that were able to actually meet me stepped forward, and all the people that weren't stepped back. And I think that like assuming people know what you're thinking, assuming people know how you love to be loved, how you want to be loved, how you want to be in relationship and in friendship is completely just immature almost. It's like I discovered who I was so that I could understand myself, so that I could communicate that to other people, so that they could love me better and they could meet me better and they could see me better. And so I'm such a fan of using your words. I'm such a fan of communication. I'm such a fan of saying how you feel. I'm such a fan of asking for what you want. And it took me so long in my life. I grew up with a narcissist. I was with a narcissist. I self-erased for so much of my life, but it was so painful to not speak. It was so painful to assume. It was so painful to wonder and wish and hope and just gaslight myself all of the time. And when I moved to a place where I just no longer was available for that, and I started to use my voice, everything got better. My business, you also make more money. Like you become more successful, you become more visible, you become, just a better person. And so communication and using your voice is absolutely essential for you to be met in the way you want to be met and for you to be loved in the way you want to be loved.
There's one thing that I tell people that when they're trying to go through this process, they get stuck because they fix their attachment and they begin building boundaries with people who are more harmful and damaging in their life. They remove them. And then we enter what we call the no man's land, where no one is talking to you. You haven't rebuilt great relationships yet. You feel more alone than you've ever felt. That's usually where people email me and say, Adam, what have you done? You've ruined my life. I have no one to talk to anymore. And it's a very real place. It's because they haven't yet deployed the transparent communication like you're talking about. They aren't asking questions. They're not trying to understand or be understood. They're not open. So unfortunately, the best people are passing them by because it's like a shop with its door closed, its lights off, and a don't come in kind of sign on. They just walk by. They don't bang on the door and rattle it and try to come in and see if you're available. They simply go on to the next shop that is fully lit and fully open. Being able to communicate in that way actually is opening your shop. It's turning on the lights. It's signaling that you're interested at all. You have to do it or you do accidentally get segregated out from the best communities. It sounds like that was a turning point for you, not only in being able to connect to people, but people receiving you and people taking interest in you in a greater way. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely fair. The reason why I'm an amazing podcast host, and I'm amazing because I've also been doing it for 10 years. So it's a lot of practice. But when we first started to do the podcast was because I was someone that, grew up in a home where I was neglected. It was narcissistic abuse. And I didn't use my voice. Became amazing at asking questions. I became amazing at making it about the other person and learning from them and really kind of cultivating this experience for the other person. And so I moved that to podcasting. So I became great at that. But when I really, really honed my skills in communication, everything shifted for me. And I think a lot of it that I overlooked and I didn't really think about critically before I started to practice communication and work with communication was how much of the body is involved in it. And for a lot of the people that I teach to speak on stages, to become better communicators, etc., we don't realize how much our body responds to the thought of having a hard conversation, like your clients you're talking about, telling people what we're looking for, telling people about what we're thinking, telling people about our hopes, telling people about our dreams, telling people about our day. For so many people, their throat closes, their stomach gets cramped, they get small, they kind of retreat physically. Their nervous system activates maybe potentially because they're scared of saying something. And so whenever I'm working with people on the voice, and this could be potentially helpful for the audience, I think if you want to become someone that uses your voice, communicates, speaks, to have more intimacy in relationships, to be seen by people, because you can be seen by a person physically, but to really see someone is to know what they're feeling and what they're thinking. And you have to know that through communication. Practicing really softening your body and regulating your nervous system, even by thinking about having a hard conversation or having a dialogue. You can even visualize, I'm going to visualize if I'm lonely, I'm going to visualize myself walking into a yoga class and having a conversation with a stranger that's next to me, with just to say hello. And you could see if your nervous system spikes, if you kind of get hot and sweaty, what happens, and regulating yourself in that process through visualization to sort of soften into a more confident state so you actually can communicate. So I think people using their body and regulating their body is a really good first step, like those people you're talking about that are feeling really lonely and ready to start using their skills. They can really do that by themselves or with themselves before they go out into the world and sort of if they get really scared.
I agree with that. We are supposed to be afraid if we're alone. That is a human nature.
Mm-hmm.
Our system is supposed to amp up with cortisol. I want everyone to imagine it's 20,000 years ago. You are a hunter or gatherer. You have a sharp stick and you are in a forest and there is no one you trust and no one who cares about you for 1,000 miles around you. Okay. You can hear tigers and lions and bears and wolves all roaming all at once, roaming through the forest around you. You have no idea. It's dark. And are you supposed to sleep well at night? No. Are you supposed to be relaxed and chilled out? No. Are you supposed to be discovering who you are on the inside? No. Are you supposed to be focusing on your yoga practice? No. Are you supposed to be building a great financial career? No. Are you supposed to feel at one with your inner being? No. Are you supposed to be...
You're learning a TikTok dance.
Yeah, you're learning. Yeah, you are supposed to be utterly afraid.
Mm-hmm.
You are supposed to have a hard time sleeping at night, every night. You are supposed to be in a fight or flight mode constantly. You're not even supposed to digest your food. You're not even supposed to have much of an appetite, except for dopamine, which will keep you just on the razor's edge. You don't want all the stimulating hormones that are supposed to release. And by the way, your sex drive is supposed to be at 0 by then for anyone out there having that challenge right now. Your system currently, today, if you don't have healthy relationships, you might not be physically in a dark forest surrounded by lions, but your nervous system thinks you are. You might not physically be alone, but your nervous system thinks you are. You are utterly afraid and you are responding not in a broken way. You're not a mess. You're not bad. You're not weak. You are responding correctly to the stimulus your nervous system is receiving from your environment and from your experience. The change that Krista and I are asking you to make and look at here is shifting mentally into a village where people care about you, shifting mentally into a place where people will watch over you as you sleep, shifting mentally into a place where there aren't predators coming to eat you because there's a nice wall around you and your tribe, shifting mentally to a place where if you got hurt, someone would drag you back to the village and feed you soup until you got strong again. Shifting to a place where you've had those conversations with people and formed those alliances that are explicit instead of implicit, and that you know you can trust and open up to those people because they see you warts and all, and they're not going to be surprised and reject you. You are safe. And then your system will signal safety. Krista, I think that's everything that you're really telling us here today on the scientific back end. Everything you've said is 100% correct on the front end of this is your lived experience. This is what we know. This
Mhm.
is how we must be living. And I think especially for all the women out there, I say this with a grain of salt. Men can operate in lone mode
Mhm.
longer than women can
Mhm.
because men can dissociate from it harder because we're
Mhm.
supposed to.
Mhm.
Men are supposed to go seek out discomfort, fear, pain, sorrow, loss. We're supposed to go face that in the dark forest over and over and over so that we can gather and hunt, not alone. We're supposed to be with other men. Alone is not good, but we can do it, and then we can die at 45 from cancer and say, okay, I
Mhm.
left a life insurance policy for my wife and kids, and we won't complain the entire time. We'll just suddenly keel over and die one day.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think women can adapt to it
Mhm.
better than men can, but women also are going to show a lot more signs of wear and tear and a lot
Mhm.
faster because your nervous system is meant to stay in a place mostly of safety so that you can nurture, so that you can care,
Mhm.
you can protect, you can feed children, you can care for grandchildren and nieces and nephews, you can mend the people who come back out of the forest wounded, you can do so many things.
Mhm.
It's not that women can't do this, it's that number one, it destroys you biochemically. And number two, you shouldn't have to because you have a better job than going out in the forest, spearing a mammoth and driving it back.
Mhm.
You keep people alive. You mend them in ways that we can't. And you allow them to immerse into a nervous system that is playful, healing, and restorative for them. And men can't do that. So if
Mhm.
women have to be men, they can, and it will kill them. And if
Mhm.
women have to be men,
Mhm.
it will kill men too, because now there's no
Mhm.
one to take care of us either.
Mhm.
That's my view. Krista, is there
Mhm.
anything in there you would pull apart or anything that you would add to there?
No, I think I just felt myself feeling a lot of compassion for men and sort of I think as our culture and society has ran, and I guess this is proven through the science you were talking about, women are communal creatures and it's more acceptable for women to prioritize relationships and friendships and, being around other women. And I think it has made me sad to see men pull away and to see men not have the depth of intimacy that I know is available to them in relationships with other men, in community with other men. And one of my hopes or wishes is that that can be more socially acceptable and that men could feel safe enough in themselves and in their worth and in their nervous systems to know that their worth is beyond just money and status and achievement through work, and that they can prioritize their relationships with men as well. Because I love men, and I've known and dated many amazing men, and maybe it's the men that I've known, but I haven't seen them prioritize community and relationships as much, or the depth that I know they could really go to. And I think it's really keeping them on the shallow end of life and keeping them in a state where they are more starved for connection, um, than I think they would like to be.
I agree with that. I think that women prioritize just biochemically oxytocin in a different way than men do,
Hmm.
and I think it drives women to just innately understand that there is something there, that it's possible. Even if a woman doesn't receive emotional intimacy through childhood, she knows instinctively that something's there, so she reaches for it. She tries to build it. She tries to craft it. I think that men, I don't know if they're just not getting it and not receiving it, or if they just get punished so much they give up. But men don't have that innate drive that says, I can build emotional connection. Most men are stunned that that concept even exists. And then if they hear it, they say, well, that must not be for me. That's for everybody else. I'm not built that way. I don't get that. And they just sort of shrug and they move on. A lot of my work is with avoidantly attached men in particular, whether it's in couples or individuals. And avoidantly attached men, their oxytocin receptors have been blocked for life. The cortisol actually has blocked them, and then they behaviorally also block any opportunities for oxytocin bonding, and they block receptors for vasopressin bonding through behaviors as well. They don't let anyone work with them to solve problems, and they don't let anyone in. And then their prefrontal cortex overdevelops to squash their emotional expression, so they don't even feel their feelings most of the time. They're blocking them out. So it's a horrible sounding thing that is terrible for them to experience, but it's also all that they know. So if you ask them about this, they'll say, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that is. Hey, do you know what emotional intimacy is? No, I don't know. That's that feelings. That's that my wife is always asking me for feelings. I don't understand why she's doing that. And they actually often think I'm protecting my wife from the burden of hearing my complaining by not sharing with her. What they're creating is emotional starvation for her, but they don't understand that.
Been there. I'm like, I've been in that dynamic, and it is, yeah, it kind of was connecting some dots for me, and just also, especially the brain science around avoidance, I didn't know. I've experienced being in a relationship with someone that was incredibly avoidant. And for me, it felt like abuse, to my inner child. It felt like abuse to feel so starved, like you were talking about. And so to understand really that overdevelopment of the prefrontal cortex also made a lot of sense, because there's so much intelligence there, and there's so much like, um, things are so practical that it almost made the intimacy even harder, because you're in that practical state of that prefrontal cortex. Um, and so, yeah, I was just honestly connecting some dots in my head in my own life when you were speaking.
100%. There's a perception that avoidant people are abusive. And that's one of the reason when I updated the field of attachment theory into attachment
Mhm.
science, I had to really split out the attachment styles into 8 subtypes, one being ethical avoidant and the other manipulative
Love that.
avoidant, because there's a vast difference between I am starving you emotionally from manipulation and malicious behavior. I am starving you emotionally, maybe from reckless behavior because I don't care. I'm starving you emotionally from neglect because I'm just not going to treat you like a human being. I don't care. But then there's also just we are two messed up human beings who each actually think what we're doing is the right thing. We are trying to be ethical, but we are both trapped. And I don't know how to offer you emotional intimacy as a concept, so I'm not trying to starve you or being reckless. I simply don't know what you're asking me for.
Mhm.
You keep asking me for this magical pink unicorn, and I don't know where to find them from. And the other person can perceive it as abuse often if they sometimes it is, like I said, over here with the
Mhm.
manipulative types or the personality disorder types, but they can perceive it as abuse sometimes because they have been abused by others who've done it maliciously. And from the outside, when you give no context, as you said, when you aren't sharing, you're not communicative, the other person is left to infer you aren't giving it to me because you don't love me. You don't care about me.
Mhm.
You don't value me. You are breaching our contract. You
Mhm.
are hurting me because you are a bad person. That's what the brain and nervous system begins to build. And then we build what's called a cortisol association with the other person that says, you don't care about me. I am tagging you as my enemy. So the
Mhm.
heart loves them, but the brain says, you are my enemy and you make things worse. I need to get away from you. And this is actually what breaks up most marriages is a cortisol association like this. It's you'll see most people say I didn't want to file, but I didn't have a choice. This is a cortisol association. And often it's because they didn't have conversations. This is not to say again that abuse
Yeah,
doesn't happen. It does, but
totally.
the vast majority of cases when I walk into them, even if they've been to 3 couples therapists and none of it has worked, we walk in and start working on cortisol association, and we
Wow.
start opening up and saying, "Do you know what emotional intimacy is?
Mhm.
Do you know that your wife is starving? Do you
Mhm.
know this is a thing you could have? Do you know that you are starving too?"
Mhm.
I have no idea what those things mean. If you
Mhm.
teach them to me, I'll try to do them, but I don't know what that means. Teaching someone that aspect, it changes everything. You can in 6 weeks you can overcome a cortisol association. It's fast, and it's amazing how fast a human adapts to that. In friendship though too. How
Mhm.
fast you mentioned at the end of your
Mhm.
previous marriage you started really focusing in on your friendships.
Mhm.
How fast did your friendships begin filling your empty cup?
I think I was focusing on them to like avoid the relationship for one, so it wasn't all good, but
Oh. Uh-huh.
it really did support. I mean, it honestly actually was really helpful for me, because I had my true secure attachment with Lindsay, my business partner, and having that relationship where I felt seen, heard, safe, loved, valued. We still had conflict repair, really mirrored for me how unsafe I was. And she actually became my primary attachment. She like became my husband, where she was like the person that
Oh.
went to first, the person that I connected with the most. And so that was a mirror for me of how starved I was in my marriage, and how much my marriage wasn't fulfilling me or wasn't safe for me in that. But what was also really striking me about what you were saying when you were explaining the cortisol thing and the intimacy was the fact that I think a lot of us we're craving relationships with intimacy, but we don't know what intimacy is. And I think that was such a beautiful thing. And I think for me, I remember so much of my life craving that partner, that person that was going to complete me, my love, like I talked about before. But I didn't really know what I was searching for. I didn't really understand. And I knew I was looking for intimacy, but until I actually experienced it, understood it, walked through it with my friends, safer people, because my friends as women, I'm not attracted to women sexually. So they are safer for me to practice on because I didn't have that like bonding of that primary person. That's how I could feel and experience true intimacy and understand it, so that I had a cellular memory of it, so that I had like a true embodied experience of it that I could bring to my romantic relationships. And so for people that want to actually experience intimacy, whether you're men or a woman, practicing sharing with someone, practicing being vulnerable, practicing, regulating your nervous systems, practicing these intimate moments that bond you through oxytocin, I think is a really good start in your life if you do want to experience true intimacy and understand what it is.
You have to experience it. The brain trusts experiences, but it also gives us the opportunity to build those experiences. If you didn't know it was possible before, now you know it's possible. Now you can replicate it. That's a big part of it. I love that. Krista, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much for that. Number one, any final thoughts for the audience?
Yeah,
and
final
number
thoughts,
two,
I think,
where can they find you?
just to summarize sort of my hope and my intention in this conversation is for us to bring more consciousness and awareness to the importance of our friendships, the importance of our community, the importance of being in spaces and places where you feel seen, heard, and safe, and allow you to be truly intimate with others and truly held and seen by other people. And that will require you to be uncomfortable. That will require you to put yourself outside your comfort zone. That will require you to make effort. That will require you to have hard conversations. That will require you to sometimes look silly or stupid and just do things that sometimes aren't always easy, but that's really what makes it worthy and worthwhile. And this has been so much fun. It was such an honor, and I'm so excited for you to come on Almost 30 if you're ready, willing, and able soon. I would love this. I think what you do is just so impactful and powerful, and it's really helped me in my life. So I just want to say thank you for doing what you're doing. And if anyone wants, more, you can go to listen to Almost 30 is our podcast. And then my website it's Krista.com. So it's ITSKRISTA.com. And it's the same on Instagram. And I do coaching and I do retreats with women to help them just find and discover themselves and become more of who they came here to be.
That is fantastic. And I highly recommend everyone check out her Instagram page. A lot of great content, a lot of great pieces there. I very much recommend, if you are somebody struggling in loneliness, you're somebody who wants friendship, you want to understand how to do friendship in a world that doesn't really seem to teach you how to do it properly anymore, highly recommend you check out her Instagram page. I am Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist. You guys know me. Me and my team are available on adamlanesmith.com and on every single platform. Please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, support the show, and I'll see you on the next episode of I Wish You Knew.